go last, but having heard the other two speakers, I think I have a couple pretty high hurdles to cover, so I don't know that I'm so lucky. One of the things I was looking at when I was looking at the pamphlet is, and listening to everybody's narratives about how they got here, how they got involved in Japanese, is how unique all of these backgrounds are. If you look at these pictures, and if you look at these peoples, it doesn't look like there's anybody who looks like they should have ended up doing Japanese. Nobody went to Japan multiple times as a child. Nobody grew up with a Japanese parent or two, even a Japanese-American parent or two. But many people ended up doing Japanese professionally in one way or another. And I think that's really striking. I think that I'm also pretty similar in that sense. My field is modern Japanese literature. And one of the things I learned here at OSU is that there was a phrase that was used in the 20s to describe a certain school of literature. And the school, writings from this school were described as genjitsu michaku. Genjitsu is reality, and michaku is attached to or glued to. And I would say that I'm Ohio michaku. I am glued to Ohio. I'm attached to Ohio. I grew up in Columbus. And other than the year and a half, 2.5 years that I lived in Japan, I lived in Ohio my whole life. So take that with whatever side grain of salt you like. I did my undergraduate work at Denison and Granville, about 40 minutes east of here. And I came here after graduation. I went to Sate in Saitama Prefecture. The state of Ohio and Saitama Prefecture have a sister state relationship. And back in the 90s, one of the aspects of that relationship was a program that sent either graduates of Ohio universities or Ohio natives to Saitama to teach English in junior high school. So I went over there. I worked in a small town called Sate, it means happy hand. And it's kind of up in the northeast corner of Saitama, way out in the sticks. Nothing romantic at all whatsoever about it, but it was a pretty good place to live for a guy who grew up in the suburbs of Columbus. And I stayed there for 2 years as an assistant English teacher. That was my formal job. And really my job was to be foreign and not scary to the students. That was my job. It helped that I studied Japanese as an undergrad. I still learned a remarkable amount when I went there. But really my job was just to be there, to be present, to represent something non-threatening about the world outside Saitama. And I think I did that fairly well. I haven't heard of any trauma stories yet, but I am circulating that stuff, so it might be out there. For the last 5 months that I was in Japan, I stayed on a cultural exchange visa and practiced a martial art called Aikido. I've been doing that in Japan. I started soon after I got there, and I stayed and did that 10 times a week for 5 months, and then came back to the United States, came back to Columbus, tried to figure out what the heck I was going to do. I had a terrible reverse culture shock. You know, living in Japan for 2.5 years, I've gotten used to everything being a challenge, everything being exciting, even if that was a bad kind of exciting. You know, here I am, I come back to Columbus, this place I've lived for 18, 19 years, and all of a sudden, I've seen all this stuff before. I've done all this stuff before. This isn't exciting. So I had a really bad time. And in fact, I had an interview with a company in Chicago to go back to Japan and work in English conversation school. That's how bad my culture shock was in the first few months. But I ended up not taking that. I got a job as an interpreter translator at Ikeda Interior Systems, which is out in west central Ohio, in Sydney, Ohio. 75, about half an hour north of Dayton. I worked there for a year or so. Soon after I got there, I realized that this is not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I did not want to be in manufacturing forever. I did not like the office setting very much, but persevered. I learned about the language. I learned about that company's culture. Then I applied for admission to DEAL, East Asian Languages and Literatures here at OSU, back when it was at Coons Hall. And I started there in '95, finished my master's in '97, and stayed on in the PhD program. I applied for a job at Denison in 2001 and took that job. Finished up my PhD in 2002, and I've been at Denison ever since. I'll probably be there for the next couple decades, so come on and see me sometime. My job is to teach Japanese language and Japanese literature. I love my job. When I entered undergrad, I wanted to be a high school English lit teacher. So I didn't end up too far away. I mean, I took a different country, it's an island country, and it's a different language. Okay, it's a very different language, but I'm still teaching literature, and I'm still teaching the language. I feel really lucky. I've always liked reading. I've always liked reading stories, fiction more than nonfiction, and I've always been interested in languages. Keith Albrecht, on the last panel, one of the panels in the morning, suggested that one of the reasons that he'd done Latin in high school. I did Latin too. And Latin's actually one of the reasons that I ended up in Japanese, because I didn't want to do Latin anymore. And I remember sitting at the kitchen table, and I said, you know, I'm going to register for Japanese. I'm going to take that as a freshman. And my mom said, what are you going to do with that? And here we are. 30 years later, close to 30 years later, and I'm making a living now. I got interested in Japanese because when I was in 7th grade, I had to go, I'm not sure, on a fishing trip to Canada with 3 adults. I was going to be the only child up there. So I took some books with me, and one of the books that I took was Shogun by James Clavell. Got really interested in the book, in the culture. There were a lot of ideas that appealed to me. It was very foreign. But there was something romantic about it. And I couldn't do anything about it through high school, but when I got a chance to study something study a new language in college,